talkradio.com, and thank you.
Night Dreams Talk Radio, After Dark, wants to give a big shout out to all the truckers that listen to our show. Night Dreams Talk Radio Network brings you the World Paranormal News with James Creechbaum. Now, the latest news.
This is Night Dreams Talk Radio Network News. I'm James Creechbaum. How strong is the evidence for life beyond Earth? Well, the first evidence of life beyond Earth is the sheer size of the universe. The universe is so vast, with so many locations, it's difficult to believe that we are the only planet where life can be found. Over the past few decades, scientists have discovered a whole range of species that live in environments that to be uninhabitable. Now, these species are called extremophiles. The existence of life in these extreme habitats increases the number and variety of habitats where life can exist. Again, it increases the probability of finding life. However, it is not hard proof. Here's a report of a sighting of a Bigfoot. I was probably 50 yards from the blind and could see someone at the blind. I flipped my rifle safety off and kept going. As I got a bit closer, I thought to myself, well, it's not Dad, it's another hunter. As I got a little closer, I could tell his head was in the pop-up blind window. I thought it was strange that a hunter would be in a ghillie suit. As I got nearer, the hunter looked like someone dressed in a Bigfoot suit. Thinking that's a good way to get shot, at around 30 to 40 yards from the blind, that horrible odor hit me square in the face. At that same time, its head popped out of the blind window, and we looked eye to eye at each other for what seemed forever, though I'm sure it was just a matter of seconds. There were no trees or brush between us, a clear view. I literally froze. I didn't move as it stomped the ground and grunted at me. All I could do was stand frozen in place in fear. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. It then stepped out of the blind and walked away from me, down the fence line, then pushed the fence down on top as it stepped over. It looked back at me while it walked across the field. I watched as it reached another fence, which it stepped over. It reached the edge of the far woods and disappeared from sight. I got a clear look at it from head to toe, face, muscles, moving under the fur, the whole 9 yards. It looked quite human in the face, Neanderthal-like. The reddish color resembled that of an orangutan with Caucasian skin tone. It had to have been 8 to 10 feet tall and was jacked with muscles. I mean, like a bodybuilder's tone. There was no mistaking it was a male. Voyager 2 is back online after a power glitch. The long-lived spacecraft went into fault protection mode last week after unexpectedly drawing too much power. Currently situated a whopping 11.5 billion with a B miles from Earth. Voyager 2 is now so far away that diagnosing and repairing any fault remotely has become a major challenge. Whenever a command is issued, it takes a whole 34 hours for engineers to receive a response. Now, it was launched in 1977. Both Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 have traveled further from Earth than any other man-made object in history and remain fully operational despite 40 years of traveling through space. 25 hospitals in North America and Europe have visual messages strategically placed near the ceilings and operating rooms. Now, these messages are only visible when read from above and are part of an ongoing study to test the validity of people claiming to have out-of-body experiences. Mystery as skeletons found with hands tied. Archaeologists have confirmed the discovery of over 40 skeletons in shallow graves at a building site in England. What makes the discovery particularly unusual is the fact that the bodies were all buried in shallow graves with their hands tied behind their backs. Mummies of Egyptian high priest unearthed. A huge burial ground filled with mummies and other figures have been discovered at a site south of Cairo. Excavations at the site are still ongoing, and while archaeologists are unsure exactly how many mummies are there, it is expected that the tombs will certainly are a substantial number, and there's a substantial number of them. Next news break, the next show.
From our compound, from the West Coast to the East Coast to worldwide, both on the internet and terrestrial radio, you're listening to Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, After Dark.
Well, we are back with our guest tonight. Jean, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Gary. Jean Broida here, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, yeah, and a big shout-out from one of our listeners, Barb, wanted to say hi to you.
Hi, Barb.
Well, going back to, I just think about, religion. I think about UFOs, aliens, creation of mankind, the pyramids, the landing strips in Africa and other parts of the world. The Sphinx, which, for years they said the watermarks or the wear marks on the back of the Sphinx was caused by sand. And back here about 2 years ago, they came out with a new conclusion. No, the Sphinx was under an ocean. That kind of predates man, doesn't it?
Well, that raises an interesting question, doesn't it? Because how old is man?
I don't know.
Aren't the dates for that going back farther and farther and farther, too?
Well, it sure changes, Adam and Eve, doesn't it?
It does. It does indeed, which was really the topic that got me interested in human origin as it relates to UFO and alien intervention, which is so complex and just to talk about it makes you sound kind of nutty, but the likes of David Icke in England, a former politician and speaker, he's a master dot connector. Graham Hancock, master dot connector. Richard Dolan, Linda Moulton Howe, lots of people connecting all these dots. And what's interesting is that researchers are arriving at the same conclusions independently of each other. So what's going on there?
Well, maybe we're starting to get the facts for once.
Maybe so. And is that because of the internet?
Well, I think as you know, you're a writer. As you know, newspapers don't exist anymore. People go to the internet, and now they have social media. They make friends. They can go find news reports. They can look anything up on the internet and find it in a matter of seconds. So I think, the internet has opened up a whole new field of understanding. So
way back before the internet, from this same study of antiquity accounts from antiquity, there was a close encounter of the third kind. This is where, according to Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the observer or experiencer sees both the UFO with one or more associated occupants, usually described as human or humanoid. So according to Roman historian Livy, in 218 before Christ, BC, quote, in the district of Amiternum, in many places, forms of men dressed in shining white were seen at a distance. They did not approach anyone. Forms of men, man-like people or forms were seen in shining white, did not approach anyone. And then 4 years later, same historian wrote, at Hadria, an altar was seen in the sky. Around it were forms of men dressed in shining white. So when we see this same term, forms of men, translated from an ancient language, all of a sudden the linguist in me perks up and says, oh, some ancient word is being translated here in a commonly accepted way, but what does it really mean? What were they really seeing? Forms of men? Who knows? We weren't there. And an altar in the sky, was that a sky platform? In modern terms, a UFO?
I would think that would be a UFO. Maybe it was stationary and hovering off the ground, at some type of height, that they looked at that. And, let's face it, people used to worship everything at one point in men's history. Let's remember that.
Well, let's suppose, I'm not disagreeing with you, but let's suppose that Anunnaki, some race of compared to proto-humans, advanced beings, showed up on Earth, bioengineered humans capable of thought and able to take instructions, and these beings had technology so advanced it seemed like magic. And wasn't it Arthur C. Clarke who said, technology sufficiently advanced will always be mistaken for magic by more primitive societies, something along that line. So these beings show up, they have advanced technology, they are as gods. They are as gods, and therefore if you want to hang out with them for the perks that you would get from hanging out with them, the advantages of advanced technology, maybe getting out of the hot sun into the shelter of a temple or pyramid, some shade in the desert, literal shade, places where priests and priestesses were initiated. What does that mean? Were they being conditioned to tolerate the presence of these aliens who radiated energy of their own that could be destructive? Stories of the Ark of the Covenant being a power source that was so powerful, only trained priests could handle it by handles. It was carried around on the shoulders with poles or something along that line, is what I've read. What was going down there? What was going down there? If they were as like gods, then would they not be worthy of worship as gods to get in their favor? In other words, I can easily see how religion would be started that way, from something real and true, because all of these ancient myths talk about our forebears coming from the skies. The Maya, the Aztecs, the Chinese, the Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Australian Aborigines, all of them say humans came, the fathers of humans came from the sky, and the mothers of humans came from the earth.
It does make a lot of sense, and not just them. American natives, the same thing.
Exactly.
We heard that from them. And so it tells me, it just a lot of things. It makes me wonder, how did the pyramids get built? We didn't have the technology to do it. I've had a lot of guests on the show the last couple of years. It says anything from digging a canal from the quarry and filling it with water and barging these big stones up. That doesn't make sense. You know what? Have you ever taken a bucket of sand and see how much water you can put into it?
Bucket of sand. So I never have.
Well, what I'm saying is sand absorbs water. So if they build a canal and tried flooding it for 20-some miles to bring barges down with these big stones, the sand would just, keep absorbing the water. They wouldn't be able to fill the canals.
I'm with you now. Well, what about ancient Egyptian wall art that shows individuals who, compared to other individuals, are gigantic? So are these Nephilim? Did Nephilim giants build the Great Pyramids? Or was it Buddhist monks, Tibetan monks, who used sound, these Dr. Seussian big horns that rest upon, like ram's horns on steroids, huge, that are constructed, and they do this wah 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 sound when the priests blow on them, and there's chanting going on, wah 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 wah, and the vibration is set up to elevate rocks to build temples in mountainsides in the Himalayas. Have you heard of that?
Oh, I did. But here's the thing. There's a company called Flow in Kent, Washington. They are the ones that invented cutting, cement, cutting stones back about